Okay, so I'm starting now from the next step. And sorry, Zoom is on because y'all are here in Zoom, and so it's confused about me talking but not recording to its little brain. I'm going to start with the next step, which is to create a house layer. And I'm going to do that over here. Actually, I can do that one easier. I'm going to actually be placing this floor onto the house. So I'm going to use that, select it, and then go ahead and create a new design layer. Call it the theater house. It's creating that layer now. It's placed it on top, but I actually want to place it right underneath the theater floor plan and select it. And then I'm going to, you'll see here, right, the extrude is selected to be below, 1.5 feet below the 0 level. I'm actually going to change that now. I'm going to make the bottom Z0, and I'm going to edit this sheet layer or this design layer and give it an elevation of -1.6 feet. And what that's going to do is allow me, when I'm working in the house, to build things based on the floor level of the theater house. Whereas in the stage layer, my 0 will be at the top of the stage, okay? So that's my first step. Then I need to take a look at how much space I have. There are these rough positions of the seating sections, but they're not specific. So I do want to place 3 seating sections into this venue. I'm going to use standard 3-foot wide risers because that's pretty typical, and just sort of see how they fit. You see how everything shakes out. So that's about there. Interesting. Cool. Right. Let's go ahead and place the second one right next to the first one and just see where things fit. So I do want a row of chairs on the floor. So what that's telling me is if I maybe move these back 6 inches, then I would be able to seat chairs on the floor as well. Nudge. It's also possible that these risers are actually overlapped a little bit, but let's just say, for the purposes of this project, that is how they are going to end up. I'm going to extrude this one 8 inches and extrude this one 16 inches. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. Yeah, that's about right. So it's a little below the stage height. I'm good with that. That's fine with me. But that gives me about the right setup. Command 5, back into top plan view. Let's go ahead and mirror this across center. And then I'll create a set of risers out here as well in the same basic process. I'm going to even just delete or duplicate these, move them over here, rotate them into place, and then I'll resize them. Nope, they are the same size already. Great. So it looks like one more back is about right. I think we could even do another one. Let's say something like that for that center section. Typically it would be 16 or 20 in order to be nice round numbers. So I'm going to actually extend those to be 20 feet. And I'll do the same with these and just make them 20 feet wide and then center them up. Great. So it's an adjusted version, but that should be pretty good. So now I have all of my risers in. The next thing I'm going to do is use the seating tool, which it's not apparent because I'm in the wrong workspace. One moment. There we go. It's over here in the stage. You can use this seating section tool, basically, right? And it's designed as a paint bucket automatically, but we actually want to use a rectangle to draw out the seating section, or the rough outline of the seating section, right? And the center pointed at the stage, and then we can make adjustments. So my row spacing is front leg to front leg, 3 feet. It did that, and then I hit enter, so now here we are. Edit seating. And then the other thing I want to change, not that part actually. I'm going to go into settings, yes. The other thing I want to change is the rise. And rather than total, I'm going to use per row. I'm going to say 8 inches per row. I can change my event chair if I want. I can space the chairs out a little bit, blah, 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 okay? This is also where you can do things like adding section names and limiting the number of seats per row, right? All of that stuff can happen within this tool. And then we say, okay. So now, it's not bad, and I can move it. It actually could be 1 row bigger than this, right? So my first row is on the floor. My last row doesn't exist. If I Shift C, now I have no last row of chairs. So that's basically how the seating section tool works. And you'll want to use that to create a seating section for each set of risers. I'll do that, and then I'll come back and talk to you about symbols. So once I've done my seating sections, my next step is going to be to do an overhead beams layer. And I am going to do this kind of the same way because I want it to visually sit on top of basically everything but the lighting positions. So I will create a new design layer, and we'll call it overhead, okay? And I'll move it a little bit down in the layer structure. And this will be where I place these beams that I'm going to draw. So they're pretty well drawn in the existing drafting. You have 2 options. You can either really get these shapes, or you can just create, using the polyline tool, a single shape. That's where I'm going to go with this. So that I have the simple shapes that go together into the full object. And then I'll extrude it all at once. So I'm going to start with a rectangle here, tracing that bottom edge. And it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, is it just me, or is it slanty? It's not me. It's a little slanty. It's a little bit off of level, which is very strange. Okay. We're going to ignore that and move on with our lives. Let's get out the polyline tool. Oh, that's the double line polygon tool. No, we're just going to do the regular polyline tool. I'm going to now trace each of these shapes. And I'm just going to make sure, like what it just did, right, is it just snapped to the intersection below, and I'm going to actually snap to the top edge of the beam itself, right? You'll notice I hit that and it was stuck. I hit delete to go back one step without having to start over. Then I'm going to go ahead and make this like that, trying to get it a little closer to some reality. And then when I go back together, now it's all one shape. And I'll do the same thing for these individual beams. Okay. So this is now that full shape. I can now select all of those things together and then Command E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude them 7 inches because that seems to be about the depth of these beams. They are, of course, flat on the ground and not vertical the way we would want them to be in the case of our drawing. So now I'm going to choose to look at it from the left or the right side and rotate this object vertical, and I may need to look at some of these new rotate tools, right? Standard rotation tool, alignment rotation tool. Oh boy, I don't like whatever that did. Shift 1, look at the end of that edge. And now we'll try and rotate from that position. Yeah, great. Command 5, back into top plan view. So now I have a 3-dimensional object that is that shape, right? If I come back up into top view, what we want to see when we look at this in our drawing is we just want to see those dashed overhead lines, right? We don't want to see all this other mess. So we're going to actually turn this into a symbol, and that's over here in Modify, Create Symbol. A symbol is like a plugin object, so you can use it in multiple places. If you edit it once, it then tracks that edit through all instances of that symbol, which is super useful in a lot of other ways. In this case, it's also going to give us the option of having a different visual look to the object in 3D versus in 2D, and that's what we're using this version of the symbol for. We're using it to do that 2D, 3D thing. We're also using it to allow us to place these beams in multiple positions and not have to draw them over again or just copy and paste them. So for both of those reasons, we're creating a symbol, and I'm just going to call it house beam. And great, okay. So now it's a symbol. To edit a symbol, we double click on it, and that will open this edit behavior box, and you can click 2D components and then edit, because what we are doing now is creating a 2D component, right? If you look over here, there are all these different objects. If it has a shadow with nothing, then there's not a specified view or adjustment to the drawing for that version, right? There's the 3D version, which is a fully rendered piece, and then there are all these other options where you can create a specific look for the object from that view. We are doing a specific look for the top view. Really, it'll be the top plan view, and it's just going to look like a rectangle. So I'm just going to trace the 3D, and that's where this show other comes in handy, right? I'm just going to trace the 3D shape. I believe that's the one. It's a little hard to tell. And I'm going to change the particulars of this rectangle to meet the requirements of our 3D shape, which will be to have no fill, and to have, instead of a solid line, a line type, a dashed line. The lights have gone out in the design studio. Hold, please. Still here, design studio. Thank you. So now you have a dashed line, which is great. And when we exit the symbol, and it tells you you've converted this into a hybrid symbol by adding a 2D component, that's what we wanted to do. So 3D objects will no longer be visible in plan view. So that's great. And we can tell it not to show us this again. But I'm going to let it show us this again because I might need to teach this again. Okay, so now I have a plan view. So when I'm in top plan view, it looks like this. When I'm in any 3D view, it looks like that. But top plan view, great. If I'm in straight top view, I still get that 3D render version, right? I still get that view of the top. But top plan view, that's where it's at, man. The next thing I need to do is place this beam at each of these positions, right? So, and I'm going to just center it because it looks like it's maybe a little wider than 7 inches. It might be an 8-inch wide beam. I'm going to place one at each of these spots. And I'm just aligning them right now because it's a little quicker. And then I can move them over and center them up over the rest of the drawing. There is one also up here. Did that duplicate go? Oh, it went all the way down there. Great. Now I'm just going to select all of these. And place them actually inside the drawing. Okay. Cool. So those beams are now placed in the drawing. I think this upstage most one is a little confusing, so it may be something I wouldn't include. I think it's an open question about whether it would make sense to include it, but it may not provide more clarity in the drawing, so it may be something that it's fine to just leave out, or it may be something that you want to complete that wall with. So let's just look at, yeah, there you go. So now we have a bunch of overhead beams. Tricky thing is they're all sitting on the ground, right? Or they're at least all sitting on top of the stage. So what we actually want to do is raise them up to the height of the bottom of this wall edge, right? Because they would match with the top of this edge of the wall. To do that, I go into my front view and X key, select them from this corner and place them just like that, right? Let's confirm in the drawing that that's how they would live. I think they actually live so that the top edge of the square sits underneath. So let's go back into that front view and place them here. Oop. Okay. So 12'5" is that Z height, and now I can just change the Z height on the rest of them to match. The Z on all of these should be 12'5". Okay, great. So now we have overhead, the gables, right, the beams, and we have the rest of the space much more clearly drafted. This will then allow you to create your plan view, which would look something like this, and your section. For those viewports, you want to just turn off the CAD drawing, which is no longer the reference. And I would make the scenery layer active, or the theater ground plan layer active, right? And then show and snap others, and see sort of if everything looks as you would want it to, which I think it looks pretty good to me. Yeah, because I'm just seeing this, but that wouldn't actually read. So once you've done this, you can go create, this is bugging me. I have to extend this wall. Boop. You can go create a plan viewport. So modify, create viewport, view, create viewport. Put that on my ground plan layer. Okay, love it, great, beautiful. Is that in 1/4 inch scale? It is, great. I have room on this full sheet to also do a section view, so I'm just going to put it on the same plate. I will select the object, I will come over here, and I'm going to look for the section viewport. Where is it? I'm not seeing it. It's okay, I can always come up to view and create a section viewport. And now I just create that line, and I hold shift, and then I choose which direction to look in, double click, and it's going to ask me a bunch of questions, and I say okay. And now a section viewport is created. Look at that, look at that, right? So that looks pretty good. I do want to change my section style. And the way that I'll do that is to go into my classes. And now that I've created a section viewport, a section style will also have been created. If I come to my classes and I go down to where it says section style right here, I can edit that section style, and I can change, and I'll go ahead and switch that to use it creation. I can change the fill to a hatch and use that same diagonal line hatch. And that will give me the same sort of style look that would match a grown-up person's drafting. This is a little wonky. I would probably go clean up that part of the drawing and place this centered into this wall, or even make it the same width as the wall, make it a 9-inch thick beam so that that looks cleaner. But other than that, not too bad, right, y'all? It's a pretty clean section. And we'll come back and look at this for lighting, and that'll be an interesting little adventure. But overall, that looks pretty good. For your assignment, go ahead and export this ground plan and section view. You want to correct these labels. You want to correct your title and your whole title block, right? And then submit